All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is Ali Mujib with the Lead with Meaning podcast. I'm really excited to have my guest today, Marcus Chan, with us. Marcus and I connected, a few months back because I just continue to see his social selling on LinkedIn. It's the only platform that I'm really on, that I'm investing my time on, and he just continued to put value after value after value. We decided to just have a conversation, and I want to say, Marcus, that 15-minute dialogue turned into like an hour. We were just chopping it up with a lot of mutual interests and mutual mentors. So just wanted to thank you for being on the show. Maybe, Marcus, you could tell us a little bit about yourself before we dig in.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, it's my pleasure. And it's easy for us to chop it up when I talk to brilliant people like you, where we just start going down rabbit holes of like these deep thoughts. So it's absolutely my pleasure to be on. So with that being said, my name is Marcus Chan. I'm a founder of Venli Consulting Group. I work directly with businesses and sales professionals to help them absolutely crush it in sales. Now, this is actually a pretty new venture for me, and I started this back in September. But prior to this, I was in corporate America for 14 plus years. I've actually only worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies in the last 14 plus years. And in that timeline, I started outside sales, built startups to multiple 7 figures, was promoted 10 times in 10 years. By the end of it, I was leading a team of 110 plus people over multiple states, doing about 200 million a year in revenue. So a lot of fun. And then I launched my new venture back in September and have looked back ever since.
Great. Well, I mean, I was really excited, Marcus, when we spoke, and, it's obviously in preparation for this interview, I've had a chance to check out the All Things Telesales podcast and a few others that you've been on. But what really stood out to me was just how you're applying your learnings into best practices, right? Mm-hmm. And, when we talk about kind of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, there's a lot of people that are out there reading good content, they post about it, but the thing that stood out to me is you're instantly applying it. I know when you and I spoke initially, we a lot of us got started with kind of Tony Robbins and Awakening the Giant Within.
That's right.
I'd love for you to maybe talk about how you really started your path of personal development, years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And this really started early on when I first got into outside sales, where I mean, I knew about personal development. I knew about Tony. People don't know about these kind of the self-help section of, what was a physical bookstore, right? So people know about it. And I didn't really, I really, first, I really thought it was hokey. I mean, that's just be real. I thought it was hokey, right?
Yeah.
But once I got into outside sales and I started realizing to achieve more, I had to become more. That was simply it. And the mindset and thought process that I had that got me to that area in life was only going to take me so far unless I changed how I thought, right? And struggling was really important. So I started struggling outside sales. Okay. So obviously I started reading like sales books, but then I started tapping into personal development.
Yes.
Right. And I remember one early on, one of the first books I read was the Brian Tracy Psychology of Selling. Yeah. And that was a very interesting concept from just to think about like the psychology of selling and the self-concept and really your upper limit threshold. How can you push it to do more? That was very interesting. So that being said, then I started obsessing, right? That's where it kind of started. I started reading as much as possible. I was reading tons of books. I literally was going to the public library every single week, and I would get like 8 to 10 books, right? And try to read through as fast as possible, right? And I did some, this is probably illegal. I probably shouldn't say it, but I'll say it anyways. I would literally go and I would take the CDs, because there are CDs on tape. And because I'm all about safe driving, I literally took it. I would burn the CD onto my laptop and put it onto my iPod so I can listen to it in the car without changing disc. Right. Yep. So, but this allowed me to supercharge, because I was commuting every day, like a couple hours a day. So I was burning through books, right? But it was interesting at the time, though, when you're burning through all those books, yes, you are learning a lot, but your application is very limited.
Yes.
And frankly, I was still applying some stuff, but not a lot. And it took me a few years. I mean, I literally was going through 60 plus books a year. I mean, easily. And listening.
You're not alone, because a lot of folks, when they're early in personal development, that's what we do. They just want to consume more and more and more. And I think as you start to gain maturity and I would say wisdom, you realize, hey, it's more about the application and the retention of this information opposed to more and more and more. So I just wanted to add that. Yeah. It sounds like you went through a similar experience.
Totally. That's exactly what it was. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I was like going through the motions, right? There was, there was no action, it was only motion. So I'm like, okay, I need to start shifting. So I started slowing down, right? I started slowing down, really reading into it and learning how to compartmentalize the information. And what I mean by that is, as I learned it, how could I use it? Right. So, for example, one thing I read in Tony Robbins very early on was, if you don't like the answer that you're at, or if you don't like the answers you're getting, ask a better question. And I found myself asking myself really negative questions in a tough spot. Right. Now, it sounds so simple to reprogram your brain when something bad happens. Like, hey, what can I learn from this? What else could I do differently? How can I apply for the future? At the time, it was instinctual. So I literally went and I typed it on a piece of paper, right? And I printed it out, those questions, like, what can I learn from this? And then I just taped it inside my visor. So that way I could just see it, right? Yeah. So every time I needed a trigger, because it wasn't a habit. It wasn't a habit yet. I needed a trigger to be like, okay, tough cold call, tough door knock, tough appointment, get in my car, drop it down, reprogram the brain, go through the sequence of questions, and go from there. So I started really slowing down. So now I still read quite a bit, right? I'm still big in personal development and learning, but I mean, I'll go through probably about 30 or so books a year, right? But I'm much more intentional with learning. And they're all nonfiction. So.
Yes. Well, no, that's great, man. Because I think I was listening to you on the All Things Telesales podcast with Jake over there, and you were giving the story about the launch of your new business, and you're a new founder, and you launched out a webinar, and I think I was actually on that webinar. I was like, let me bookmark it, and there was some challenges with the launch, which happens, right?
Totally. Right.
And it wasn't that stood out to me. What stood out to me was how you handled it, and you said to yourself, you know what? That kind of sucked. I have a high bar. I'm going to do it again. And what you did was you said, I'm going to give myself, a few minutes to kind of to mull on it and say, hey, this sucks. But then what can I learn? What can I adopt? And then how can I apply that? And you took that process, and maybe you can articulate it better than I can. And instantly you just launched a new webinar and you're able to book some customers out of it, right?
Right. That's exactly it, right? And I think it's very normal, right? Because I mentally had hyped myself up this webinar. I'm like, this is going to be a great way to get my message out, get some new clients this way, right? And it was an utter failure. I mean, to me, like, technology didn't work. People could see my screen. I'm like, what is happening? And you're live so you're like, what can I do? So, and also the solopreneur, it's all you, right? There's nobody else there. Like, okay, I got to keep going. And then from there, after I got done, I definitely gave myself a pity party for a few minutes, right? And I'm like, okay. And immediately after, I went to GoToWebinar, and I set the next session. And I'm like, I got to keep moving.
Yeah.
So set the next one up. Now, what can I do? And I started working backwards. What could I do differently to get my result I want to get? So work backwards, did some tweaking, some testing, right? I just didn't know the software well enough. That was my own fault, right? Yep. Learn from that, repeat it again, brought on quite a good number of clients second round. Great. And then I'm like, I'm going to try again. Did it again. And then did it again. So I actually ran four webinars in about 30 days because I was wanting to tweak the process some more and learn from it, right? Because I knew it was a great way to really get the messaging out there and bring on more clients. So that was really a good way to learn from something that initially I'm glad it didn't go well because I needed to learn from it. I had to learn from it.
No, that's great because I was listening to John Maxwell. Everyone knows John Maxwell, well-known leadership coach, and he recently did an interview on, one of my favorite podcasts, Impact Theory. I'm a huge fan of what Tom is doing. Shout out to Tom over there. And he had talked about his 50 years of working with leaders. There's an area and a skill set that resonates with all of them, and that is self-awareness, the ability to understand what you're good at, what you're not good at, and ability to want to learn and want to change. And, so that really stood out to me, in the short conversations we've had, that says, wow, this is really a leader here. He's very self-aware of himself, very willing to understand, learn, pivot, and go from there. You also had talked a little bit about Microwins, so when you and I spoke a while ago, we talked about how we set goals, but the importance of not just attaining those goals, but really, resonating with those small wins and accepting those. And maybe you could touch on that a little bit, because for me, Microwins were really brought to my attention during James Clear's Atomic Habits, right? There's a few things I really took from that book. And one was, not just waiting for that big summit that you reach, but looking at the smaller things along the way. So maybe you could touch on a little bit, and I know you put this out with your work and your coaching, with goal setting, and ensuring that you're going to attain those goals and the power of Microwins.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And you're spot on. And the tricky part is especially in the sales type of organization that we live in, right? Sales world we live in, we love the big wins, right? We love getting that big account. We love like, closing someone that took a while to work on. And it feels so great, right? But immediately after, we're like, what's next? So even with that, you don't really feel even that great after like the next day. It's kind of like you hit President's Club, awesome. How about this year? Because by the time you get the results, right? Yeah. You're already many months into that year, right? So that's how life is. So it's really important to have micro wins, and it really should be a combination of lagging indicators and leading indicators, right? So it shouldn't just be lagging only; it should be both. You really need both to have these type of micro wins. And what I mean by that, when I say lagging indicators, it's something that's already happened, right? Yep. So you can't change it, right? Yep. So there's like, hey, you close the deal, right? That's good. Or maybe like, they got back to you about moving the ball forward on something. It's fine too. Then leading indicators are things that you can control that will ultimately lead to a lagging indicator. They'll lead to a result, right? So I think it's really vital for you to have different ways to measure it, right? And it's not always about measuring. Sometimes it's sometimes it's not always quantifiable, but you need to have micro wins daily to stay focused, right? And if you're not careful, if you don't have micro wins, you're gonna have the opposite, which is you feel like you're getting beat up every day, right? And sales, when I think about sales or what we do, it's like a death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? Right? It is, right? Little cuts. They don't seem like much, but by the end of the week, by the end of the month, if you're not where you're at, you're like, oh, you feel like you're bleeding out, right? So reverse that. Instead of 1,000 cuts, have 1,000 little wins. Yeah. Right? 1,000 little wins that ultimately will do a couple things. Number one, it'll build your confidence, right? Which is really important. It's all about mindset, right? And number two,
we're going to touch on that in a second.
Right, yeah. So you really want to have little micro wins. And sometimes it's nothing crazy, right? Sometimes it's something as simple that you can control, right? And you and I have talked a lot about gratitude lists and all these things. Like I literally have like silly things like, like I'll put my gratitude list like from the day where it's like, hey, like today, I'll literally list like micro wins in there, right? Somebody does list like 15 things of like just like the tiniest things. Like, hey, like I was able to like I don't know. I was like the other day, hey, even though I was really tired and didn't sleep well, I still got up.
Yep.
That's to me it's a micro win, right? I did something that someone who weaker minded would not have done. After that, like I tested a new way getting a hold of my prospect, and they got back to me. Right. So here's a good example, right? So I have this great client, and we've been working for a few months now. It's going really well, and we're just set for our next session, right? Can't get a hold of her. She's like ghosting me for like a month. Very unlike her. I'm like, uh-oh, did I lose this client? That's one thing. Did I lose this client? Did I mess up? Did this do wrong? I'm like, I don't want to lose a client. I'm still working to build this business up, right? So I obviously did multiple times. I've called her, emailed, dropped by, did holiday gifts, and all these different approaches, texted her, all that stuff, LinkedIn messages her, sent her a video. I literally all these things. No response.
No response.
I'm like, oh crap. I lost a client. Awesome, right? That's what I'm thinking, right? So I'm like, okay. I hadn't, my last outreach was probably like 5 days ago. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do one last ditch effort. I'm gonna try a little different approach. So I sent her a meme. I just texted her a meme, right? I sent her like a funny meme with a funny message on Valentine's Day, right? Within 7 minutes, text back. Hey, super sorry. I'm basically ghosting you. I'm in Tahoe right now, and things going really good. I'm actually been getting tons of positive feedback from our president, from all the stuff we've been working on together. I'll be back next week. I'll call you like Tuesday. Beautiful.
All right. Sometimes you just need to have that pattern interrupt as we talk about skills, right?
That's it. That's all it was. But to me, that was a micro win, right? Yeah. Even though
that might not be a micro win, that might be a win.
Well, I don't. To me, it's a micro because like we didn't book a time, right? Yep. I didn't collect any revenue, right? So but to me, that is a leading indicator, right? That connect with her. That's going to lead to a lagging indicator. So to me, it's a micro win for me, right? It's not a lot of revenue, but to me, it's simple. It's purely about the process and having that micro win that day.
Yeah. And a lot of that, and I read or listened to you talking about your 5x5, and this is your technique to talk about
Oh yeah.
making sure that you have tangible goals, right? A lot of us, get some folks that, go through that goal setting twice a year. It's not really attainable. And one of the things you and I had connected on was, we have both recently read Brendan Burchard's High Performance Habits. And
Love it. Yep.
Brendan talks about, most people, they review their goals quarterly or twice a year. He reviews his goals every day, and he has a reset every weekend, right? And so I know you follow a 5x5 practice, which is reviewing your goals 5 times in the morning for 5 minutes, right? And, I don't think it's 5 goals. I think it's 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're spot on, right? The majority of people, the average person typically will maybe write goals if you're lucky, okay? Right? And if they do write goals, they review it maybe once a year, maybe twice a year if you're lucky, right? And usually it's like, oh crap, year's almost over.
Goal setting a review time.
Time to write some new goals, right? It's kind of like when people are doing like QBRs for themselves for the team, right? Hey, let's write my goals for the quarter, and then they never look at it again, right? Which is a huge mistake. So for me, I know I need to be top of mind, right? So like 5 minutes in the morning is part of my morning routine. I review my goals. So I actually physically write out my goals, right? Every single one, my 1, 3, and 5 year goals. And then at night, I read them again, right? So, and it's twice, it basically starts my day, ends my day, if you will, with the goals. So this helps me keep focused, right? Because sometimes your day goes sideways, and at the end of the day, you're like, okay, you know what? I didn't work towards my goal. So what are my micro wins for today? What am I grateful for, right? Okay. And then you can be more intentional for your next day. What can I do differently tomorrow to ensure I'm working towards those goals, whether it's 1, 3, or 5 year goals. So really important, but it keeps you top of mind so you can adjust and pivot as life hits you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so are you tying visualization into this? Because I know one of the topics you and I really connected on was truly visualizing the attainment of a goal. And, I really love neuroscience. I love the quantum field. A lot of folks have heard me talk about it before. And one thing that I'm always really excited about when I meet somebody who's thinking about visualization at a very deep level, right? And I'm going to get to kind of some things that you're doing that are very unique, but are you adding visualization to those 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do my visualization actually in the morning.
Okay.
Right? I have a little more energy in the morning. I've tried the evening where I think I mentioned when I meditate in the evening, I'll fall asleep if I do for too long, right? So, it's a little bit of a balance of it. So, what I do, I have what's called a vivid vision. Okay. And I mentioned it on Jake's podcast, right? But I literally, and I do for my 1 year goal. So I imagine if 1 year from now, if someone was to, watch me from when I woke up to when I went to bed, and they were to write it out exactly what I was like a story from start to finish, what it would look like. And it will go in detail from how I feel to all the little details throughout the day. So I wake up as if, I wrote my vivid vision as if I achieved every single one of my 1 year goals from start to finish, from when I wake up, my workout, how I feel, to getting all the Stripe payments on my phone, to taking care of my kid, to like everything, and every little detail. Even things like, hey, you know what? Like, it's the middle of the day. My wife said, hey, you know what? Like, should we go grab some lunch? I'm like, sure, because I can do whatever I want. And it feels amazing, right? Like, so but literally, I wrote it all out, and then I recorded myself reading my vivid vision. And then in the morning, after I write all my goals out, right, I sit there, crisscross on the floor, and I play it, and I close my eyes and I play it, and I visualize and listen at the same time. So I'm not just visualizing it, I'm really listening to myself tell a story to myself 1 year from now. And I do it every single morning.
How long have you been going through that process?
So that process, I think I've done for a few months now, right? Okay. So, but I've always visualized, not to that level. So it started off, the vivid vision was a concept I learned from somebody else. I love that idea.
I love it as well. That I had forgotten about you recording it and listening to it. Like, that is money. I'm constantly like impressed when, I love my morning routine. I love a lot of things that I'm doing for my personal development, but every now and then I come across somebody like yourself that's like, you're doing something really unique that I'm like, man, this is something that I have to add. Have you already started to see an impact, or is it a little too soon?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like freaky. Just like it's not like all of it at once, right? But when I wake up and suddenly there's like payments on my phone, that's literally in my visual. I literally visualize this.
Yeah.
Waking up and having people pay me stuff. I'm like, that's weird to me, right?
Yeah.
So, now I'm gonna close this blind for a second. So, what I've also seen too is like just different things from, man, like, I can't even explain words, like just how I feel, right? The way you feel is so vital, right? It's absolutely vital. And the thing was, before I started doing this for 1 year, I visualized in different ways before. So for example, like if I had a really big presentation in front of a bunch of other execs, I would visualize it from start to finish, right? If I was doing a large speaking engagement, there's like, 500 people, right? Like what I would do, this is where I got the practice of recording myself, but I literally practiced about 100 times before a large engagement like that. At least for me, that's large, right? So I would practice and record myself going through it. And then I would visualize myself doing it and play it back. So literally I would picture myself behind stage, how I get myself amped up before a speech, right? That's the thing I do, right? So I can give myself like, primed in the right state before I walk on a stage, and I imagine exactly how I want to go with all the right comedic timing, all people laughing in the right spots, all those key things that are, you work so hard to deliver a great speech on, and I'd visualize that, right? So, and then I would also because I traveled quite a bit in my last role. So like I would literally put my earbuds in and I would visualize on the plane too. I'd be on the plane. I'm like, I got it's a short flight, it's a 45-minute flight. I don't want to take my laptop out. Let me just listen and visualize.
Priming. Yeah.
Priming. I'm priming myself for that. That's all I'm doing.
There's huge power in that, and that now there's science and data that shows that, the subconscious mind does not understand the difference between reality and what's going through thought, right? So it's all about belief, right? And when we talk about kind of mindset and belief, and we'll come back to, some other things, but, that one thing I really love that you were doing was you wrote that letter to your future self, right? And it says, hey, if I'm ever in a situation, and honestly, I don't know if you know this, Marcus, but, so I had listened to you sharing a story about writing a letter to your future self when you're in a moment of challenge, right? Yes. And reminding yourself that you've been through this before, you've been through this challenge before. And this is something that I heard from actually David Bayer. David Bayer is actually a mindset coach, right? I believe his book is called Mind Hack. It's in my queue. I haven't read it yet. And he talks about, when you're going through that process, we're always in a powerful or a primal state. And, that primal state, is kind of fight or flight. And the powerful state is where you're tuned in and you can slow your parasympathetic state down. And he always asked his clients this very question, is it true? And if you've already been through that type of challenge in the past, then it's not true because you've overcome it. But maybe you could touch on, one, how did you come up with this concept of writing a letter? Because, I even share that with my wife and she says, hey, she started to name drop a bunch of people that teach this, but I thought it was amazing, right? And secondly, like maybe you could share with the audience here today that haven't heard it, what that's about.
Yeah, totally. And I'll share when I first learned it, right? And it was actually very interesting because it started off as an assignment when I was getting my master's, right? So we're kind of started, right? And it wasn't to the level I've taken it, right, to now. But, it was very interesting. So it was my very first day of my MBA class. I can't remember what class it was, but the teacher was phenomenal. And she said, hey, let's look around you. A small class. There was like 10 people. She's like, look around you. She's like, about 40 to 50% of you will not make it to the next class. I'm like, oh, great. Awesome. Right. So she's like, what's going to happen? Because it was designed to be a full-time MBA where you're working full-time and you're also going to school. Right. So you are, shoot, man, you're doing, you're reading at least 200 pages a week. You have at least one like papers due or whatever's due. And you have a group project due every single week, minimum, right? So you have a lot going on, working full time, and everyone's got families. She's like, you will want to quit. She's like, just write a letter to yourself of why you're doing it. That's it. That's where it started.
Yeah.
Like, okay, why you're doing it. Okay.
Sure.
And I'm like, I thought that was good. I'm like, okay, that's good, right? But I'm like, what makes it better is I just need to remind myself, like, that I got this.
Yeah.
Right. And what better way to tell myself I got this by listing all these achievements I have in there, like almost like a little brag book, right? Just to remind myself, right? And then from there, like, once I have that brag book, I'm like, I should add in here. I should include some examples in here, just some real primal examples of times, just to remind myself of when I push through. Because when you are in that dark moment, when you are questioning yourself and you're wanting to quit, whatever it is, whether it's going to school, whether it's maybe it's in a relationship, or maybe it's work or whatever, maybe you're picking a new sport or whatever, you will want to quit at one point when things get hard. That's normal. But it's your ability to push to remind yourself how great you really have it, right? Because everything that we do is based upon the references we have in our head, right? So whatever we refer to, right? So it's like, if we forgot that we can climb mountains really well, and we're climbing a big mountain, we need to be reminded, hey, you know what? You climbed those 10 mountains last year. Oh, you know what? I've
done this before. Yep.
I've got this, right? Those are your references, right? So you do the same thing for yourself, right? You just write a simple letter, dear Marcus, like, this is why you're trying to go through, achieve blank. Maybe it's a new role. Maybe it's maybe you want to climb a mountain. Maybe you want to pick up a new sport, whatever it's going to be. Why are you doing it? That why, it's got to be deep. It can't just be some superficial. It's got to be deep. So when you have that struggle, you push through, and then you list in there all the examples of why you're so awesome, and other examples you may have of time where you overcome something similar that was tough. And that's a technique I've used a lot of times for a lot of people that are maybe starting into outside sales, or they have been successful, or maybe they just got promoted to be a new role. Maybe they're a sales manager now. And now they're questioning themselves because they're like, I was so good at sales, and now this is a totally different skill set I need. So that letter is a way to remind yourself and reprogram your brain.
Yep.
So then when you're having that tough day and you're wanting to quit, you pull that letter out and you read it to yourself out loud. Right.
Wow. Well, it's almost pivoting, and like, this is amazing because I've created a draft. I'm not all the way through. I listened to that. I says, wow, this is great, right? But when I know we moved past goals a little bit here, but you had talked about being really intentional with the goals, and it's reminding me of even this letter, because if we don't understand the true intention behind what we're doing, right, when we're documenting our goals or when we're going through challenge, right, you're never going to be able to pull yourself through. Why is intention so important to you? And what do you tell clients and customers that you've worked with about really understanding the purpose behind what they're doing?
Yeah, and that's so critical, right? When I think about the most successful people in the world, right? The most successful people in the world, they have one trait in common.
Yeah.
Focus. They can focus, right? Which means they can be intentional because they're focusing what they're doing. That's all it is. They are intentional. They can focus on whatever they're working on, right? And many people are unintentional.
Yeah.
In fact, they live life unconsciously. They go through the motions. They go through, I got to wake up. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do that, right? It's a lot of, I got to do.
The autopilot, right?
The autopilot, right?
Yeah.
They are an autopilot in the car, autopilot in their whole life. And suddenly they wake up and they have not achieved what they want to achieve in life. And they wake up unhappy, overweight, dissatisfied with their relationships. And it's not a good way to live, right? It's really not. And I found by being intentional, right? Just by trying to be intentional, you are already ahead of the game. Yeah. Just by writing a rough draft, you are already ahead of the game because now you're more aware, right? And those who are most intentional ultimately are the most fulfilled. Like, that's just what happens. Like, I don't know anyone who is unintentional and is truly happy.
I took down you mentioned recently, which is progress is the ultimate motivation, right?
It is.
So when we 100%. Talk about, and this is a big, goes back to Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins always says that, people are unhappy if they aren't attaining certain value and goals, which goes into a lot of the dialogue we've been talking about when it comes to, being efficient with your goals, right? And when we talk about kind of that intention, if we aren't, focusing on reviewing what our objectives are, whether that is nightly or in the morning, but more frequently, how can we actually attain them if we aren't looking at them and reviewing them? Brendan Bouchard talked about this in High Performance Habits, of the clarity of what those goals are. And, I know for me, primarily as an individual contributor in sales, we often ask, the leaders that I work with, why are they looking to attain a certain goal? And really trying to challenge them on what that why is. Because usually we're going to get a surface level why. Well, these are my company KPIs or whatever that might be. But if we really can dig deep into what that real value is, that intention, right? And not only as individuals can we help to attain those goals, but, we can also help our prospects and our customers attain those goals as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot about this, right? I call it the M5 pillars, right? And really, when I think about it, there's really 5 M's that really matter most to people, right? In life, in general, right? So there is, if they're this is what they should be intentional in, because if they are intentional in these 5 areas, they will achieve an incredible amount of success. Okay, so their mind, right? Are they intentional about their mind, right? Are they intentional about making money? Here's the thing: money's not everything, but it sure sucks when you don't have it, right? Are they intentional with matter, right? Purpose, like what's their purpose, right? The muscle, which is not, I'm not working, I'm talking about physically. Are they physically feeling good, right? And then the last M, marriage, right? And it's not just marriage with your spouse, which is just one piece of it, but with your friends, right? If you think about everyone as a marriage, how are you intentional with that piece? If you are focused on those 5 areas and you really nail them and you're intentional, you're less than freaking good. Really, really good.
Wow. I love that. I haven't heard it broken down like that, but it's what stood out to me when I was listening to you right there, Marcus, was Eric Thomas, E.T. hip hop preacher. I love him. He's, I listen to him when I need to get riled up a little bit. Yeah. But one thing he always talks about is, people could be 100% in their business and in their careers, but are they 100 in every area of their life, right? And so when you talk about work-life integration and balance, these are why, for me personally, I think I was very fortunate that in my personal development, I went inward first and kind of outward second. So, been in some level of sales for 20 plus years of my life, probably in B2B, for the last 10, 12 years. But it is always easier for me because I'm not looking at just my career. I'm looking at every facet of my life and saying, how can I be at 100% effort in all of these areas? And it's why I'm very intentional on the weekends when we talk about families and things of that nature. Well, Marcus, one thing I always like to ask, guests as we're trying to wrap up here is, what's one piece of advice you would offer a younger Marcus or a young sales professional or, a client that you're just onboarding that says, if I had to really give you one piece of advice to make impact and change, what would that be?
Yeah. If there's just one piece of advice, I'll really say, only take advice from people who have achieved what you want to achieve in life. That's it. Everyone loves to give advice. You'll see it all the time, right? People love to give advice, right? And I see a lot of these entrepreneurs and these fake influencers online, right? Where, and it's nothing to do with their age, but they haven't achieved really anything.
Yeah.
And they want to go out there and they want to share a message and give it advice, and that's great. But if you're not taking your own advice, that's not good. And there are some people out there that are very impressionable, like, oh yeah, I should go do this, right? I should go do this. It's kind of like, if you listen to Gary Vee, everyone knows Gary Vee, right?
Yep.
People love to take what he says out of context, right? Like, I should just quit my job and go seek, well, he's not saying that. He's saying go bust your ass. Like, go bust your ass, go learn how to be successful and have patience.
Yep.
But people forget that part, right? they're selective in what they hear, right? Like, quit my job, be not true. He's not saying that, He's saying that's a path, but you got to go and you got to bust your tail. You got to put the work in, right? Yeah. So don't forget that piece. So
you can't forget the hustle,
Hustle.
The one thing I got to say before I want to turn it over to you and where people can find you is, when we reach out, Marcus, I mean, you are eating your own dog food, like I got a personalized LinkedIn video when we connected. We continue to share content. I love the content you're putting out. You really focus on value. Anytime we've communicated, I'll get a LinkedIn voicemail, not just a standard LinkedIn message. So you're definitely, leveraging social selling in a way that I don't see a lot of people do it. I see a lot of people, like you said, talking a game about, what to do. And there's a handful of individuals like yourself that I was like, I got to talk to him. I got to have Marcus on the show. Where can people find you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, right? It means a lot to me because it's funny because there's some influencers out there where they actually sell LinkedIn, like, how to be a great at LinkedIn. And when I engage with them, I'm like, you're not even doing your own practice. like, all right, that's fine, whatever. So anyways, you can find me on LinkedIn, which is pretty easy. Marcus Chan, MBA, it's easy to find. Also, I have a ton of free resources. If people go to salesninjaschool.com/resources. Again, that's salesninjaschool.com/resources. There's tons of free training in there, free content, my blog's on there, lots of great, easy stuff right there for people to access. So looking forward to helping people absolutely crush it in sales.
Great. Well, Marcus, I appreciate you coming on the show. For all the guests, definitely check them out. Sales Ninja School, LinkedIn, continues to provide value to the community. Anybody that's, looking to expand their business with their prospects and their customers, or even some leadership coaching on his own. I've continued to get value from Marcus. For those that are listening in, appreciate you taking the time. Please like, comment, share, and we'll check you out on the next show. Appreciate it.